This is the Canadian Women in Art podcast. I'm Krista Cook. In this podcast, I'm going to guide you through the history of women artists in Canada, as well as talk about two important females who have helped shape Canadian art. By taking risks and using controversial subjects that challenge the norms of society, these women have inspired new tangents in art. To understand the development of the arts in Canada, we must first look back to European Victorian social structure. Women in this culture were typically connected to what is called the private sphere, while men were connected to the public sphere. Women were considered too delicate to face the horrors of the outside world and must be protected and provided for by a man. Instead, women were expected to make the home a perfect, relaxing haven for when the man returned home. Now that we understand the place of a woman in Victorian Europe, we can begin to explore women in the arts. Typically, art was a male-dominated area of study. Women were not allowed to study at a university until the latter half of the 17th century, and there were many prejudices against intellectual women who wanted a degree. Even when women were able to pursue a career in art, there were many drawbacks. Often, when displaying their art in shows, paintings by women would merely be identified as by a lady. Females were still considered inferior to men, and therefore any art they produced was seen as irrelevant. In 1886, artist Mary E. Dignam created a club of women trying to develop their skills in art. Lady Aberdeen, wife of the 7th Governor-General, helped Dignam to develop this club even further, and the Women Arts Association of Canada was born. One of the most prominent female artists in Canadian history, known for her post-impressionist style of painting West Coast forests and Haida culture, was Emily Carr. Born on December 13, 1871 in Victoria, British Columbia, Carr was fascinated with art throughout her whole life. She studied extensively in France, but always came back to Canada to paint the West Coast landscape. Her paintings are now iconic images of Canada that helped to establish landscape as central to Canadian art. Carr was largely influenced by the Group of Seven. However, unlike their barren landscapes, Carr brought the contentious topic of Native people into her art. As a female artist, Carr understood the Native struggle for existence and the extent to which they were marginalized. She found their culture intriguing and wanted to preserve it before it disappeared completely. Carr attempts to internalize Indigenous values and express them through her paintings. Canada had yet to be distinctively defined as a nation, and Carr thought that Aboriginal culture was essential to creating a new national identity. Women in Indigenous communities across Canada have a unique style of art that combines their Canadian heritage and their gender. The home is an important place for all women, but particularly to Native women. To them, a home is a place that promotes cultural identity and transverses ideas of colonialism, gender, family, community, and nation. This significance of place is reflected in Aboriginal female artwork. Fast forward to the late 20th century, and one of Canada's leading female artists is Jana Sturback. Born in Prague in 1955, Sturback immigrated to Canada in 1968 with her family following the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia. Sturback attended the Vancouver School of Art, and she received her degree in fine arts from Montreal's Concordia University in 1977. Her art is very modern and sheds a new light on present Canadian society. Most of her artwork requires interaction with people to fully convey its meaning. Sturback is most famously known for her sculpture, Vanitas, Flesh Dress for an Albino Anorectic. This dress was made from $250 of flank steak and was first on display in 1987 in Montreal. Due to the perishable nature of meat and the uniqueness of the dress, Sturback was met with a great amount of protest. The dress was symbolic of a woman's relationship with her body. Women often feel at a distance from their own flesh because society and media are constantly telling women they do not have the perfect bodies. Just as women age, the dress started to rot away. The aging development is often uncomfortable for females, and Sturback is displaying the process for all to see. Many also construe the dress to be a reflection of how ludicrous the fashion industry is. In this way, the flesh dress sculpture can be seen as a feminist piece. It boldly points out how society is patriarchal and women are merely seen as pieces of meat. Sturback is holding up a mirror to society in order to confront and uncover major social issues. Modern Canadian art, such as the art of Sturback, is where it is today because of people like Emily Carr, who have pioneered female art in Canada. Landscape and Aboriginal people are central to the foundation of what makes art Canadian. This idea of Canadian art has undergone a process of development throughout the 20th century, and the subject has shifted from national identity to national issues such as gender inequalities. This has been the Women in Canadian Art podcast. I'm Krista Cook.